Hi, welcome to Pride Pages podcast. I'm here with Carlin McCullough here in Boise, Idaho.
Oh,
Hi, Carlin.
hello.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and jump right in to the nitty gritty questions. What is your coming out story, or tell me something about when you first came out?
Um, I'm glad you sent me these because I had to think back to remember. Because I kind of have more or less like two, right? And they're not altogether all that interesting, but right when I was about around high school age was really when I started finding kind of what I felt comfortable with, how I identified, and really finding those words because I have the benefit of being pretty young, and so like I did grow up on the internet. Um, and so I benefited from it because I had access to like kind of commune with these people that felt the way I did. And I think if I hadn't had that, I would take me a lot longer to find what makes me comfortable. But so one thing is good about the internet for young queers growing up today is sometimes you can find the community. So about that time, and per specific year escapes me, it was very clear to me from the time I was younger that like I felt not all the same as others did in a romantic like setting, because I think you are like, right, heteronormative ideas are like so shoved down like children's throats in a way that like seems normal to people who are heterosexual. So they're like, no, it's not. It's like, well, it is. And so I remember being a kid and just always being like, I don't understand why all these relationships between these men and women seem to be like the pinnacle of this movie. And I got older and I found that I was like, oh, well, it's because I'm not a heterosexual individual. And so as far as coming out, I didn't particularly, uh, because I think that coming out can be really important. I think that for people who need to take that moment for themselves, they should. I think that everyone should have the right to. But I also don't think that you should have to, right? Because like I have two other siblings. One is still little, and one is an adult like me. And like my brother, didn't have a coming out, because as far as we know, he's a heterosexual cis man. And so no coming out for him. And I felt like there was no reason for me to come out because I was just living my life and my brother didn't have to. So I didn't really come out. My dog is here and he's grumbly. um, I remember with my mom came up to me one day and she was like, Carlin, what is your deal? She said something like akin to that. Cause right, I was like going and doing things with like pride events and like interacting with my community when I was younger. Um, and she was just like, what's the deal? Like, are you going because you're an ally to your friends? Are you going because you're a queer person? And I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm going to all these things because I am queer. So like I didn't necessarily come out to her. She came up to me, was like, what's up? And I was like, oh, since you asked, this is what is up. Um, so if someone asked, like brought it up to me, I was like, oh, well, we can talk about it. But I didn't feel the need to bring it up because I'm like, yeah, I'm existing out here. So that was at first. The thing I was very stressed about was my dad, who reacted much better than I anticipated. I think sometimes we really build things up in our heads. But I told him that I was interested in women on my 16th birthday. And I remember I picked my birthday because I was like, if he is a dickhead about it, he's going to feel super bad. And for the rest of my life, he can hold it over his head that he ruined my birthday. So it was a very strategic plan. I was like, either it will be fine, which it was. He was just like, ah, okay. He did not seem interested by that information outwardly, um, which is fine. But I was like waiting for like a blow up, and I was like, I'll do it on my birthday. And then if he blows up, I'll be like, you ruined my birthday. And so you should feel double bad. But that's not what happened.
Well, you've got
I had it planned out.
What's that?
I had it planned out. And then I'm non-binary, and this was something that then later, that's why I say like almost had like 2 points in my life where I was like finding who I am. One with earlier was easier for me to find like where I felt I landed on like the spectrum of like sexuality. And it took me a bit longer to really find what felt comfortable to me gender-wise, because we live in an extremely like binary world, not within gender, but like everything is very much like we're taught like you are, it's this or it's that. And I'm non-binary, and what it means to me, right, is that I am not a woman, I'm not a man. Like I really feel that there's not a good way to describe who I am as a person, except for like you meet me, you spend time with me, and I just am who I am. It's very upfront. So as far as being non-binary, also similarly, wasn't something I necessarily discussed with my parents, with my friends at the time. Like in high school, I had friends that were trans. I had a couple friends that were trans men. And I had some other people who were gender fluid in my life. And so I just kind of asked them and told them that like I would like to be referred to by like they them pronouns, because I was feeling it out. And because I was with people my age who were going through a similar experience, it was very much not coming out. They're just like, oh, okay, like it's very easy for them to do that because it was like knowledge that they had. They didn't have to learn it. They'd kind of grown up to it, and also were going through this time in their life for themselves. So at school and like in my social life, like I was very much just living as my non-binary self. And then once again, my personal life, like my mom came up to me because I was binding. I was very lucky, very privileged to get top surgery back in 2020, and it was an amazing experience that really did just make me feel so at home in my body. So very lucky, because a lot of trans people have to wait much longer to have access to it, or don't get access to it at all. But I was wearing like chest binders when I was in high school, and my mom once again came up and was like, what's the deal? She was stressed, right? Because she's like, I need to know what's happening with my child. Like, I want to be in touch with you. She's like, so you're a dude now? And I was like, no, that is gross. I was, no shade to the men. She was like, so you're a trans man? I was like, no, men are icky, mom. I am non-binary. And she was like, can't even begin to understand what that means. And if that started a long like time of learning and a journey with me, my mom. But like I said, at that time, she just came up to me. She's like, are you a man? Like, why are you wearing binders? What's the deal? And I was like, I am not a man. That sounds gross. And she's like, okay, well then why are you like wearing binders and stuff? I was like, well, I'm not a woman. Like, that's, love you guys. Women are fantastic, but also not for me. So that's kind of that. That's a real long roundabout of my two more or less coming out stories. I again had like people around me in my social circle that were just incredibly accepting, and like I said, going through these changes and explorations themselves. So we were all really kind of had each other's back. And so very glad for that. And then later my family was just like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm just being myself. They're like, it's weird. I'm like, yeah, it is. So,
and you were just being yourself. It sounds like your family was supportive, but maybe needed some education and understanding for the most part.
I don't want to say they were truly terrible. Not to put them on blast, but I would not say they were supportive. Once I did, like, when I was like, I'm non-binary, they were like, mm-mm. They're like, that's not a thing. So it did take a long time of education. And now my relationship with my immediate family members, I really do like, and they have learned a lot on for me, which I appreciate. But without listening, some of them, it was like I had to force that information to them, with them like scratching, like dragging along, like, no, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to learn it. I was like, no, you're gonna. So certainly could have been better. Certainly could have been a lot worse. My social circle, that found family that for a lot of queer people is really important. That was really what kept me as happy as I could be at the time. I really appreciate my relationship with my family today, but they have had to learn a lot. And unfortunately, I had to be the one to teach them while I was also trying to like take care of myself. And it was very overwhelming to be met with that like constant, just like, no, I don't think you know what's going on. It's like, no, I do. Um, but it's hard. That's why I think a lot of queer people, some of us know a lot about who we are. Not to say that anyone else can't, but it's because like I know in my life, like I was forced to figure out who I was really fast because I suddenly had people ask me a ton of questions and like feeling that if I didn't have these answers like ready to go, that I didn't know what I was talking about. They're like, if you don't know, can't answer all our questions right now, then we think this is makeup. We think it's fake. I'm like, no, I just need a minute to compose myself. So
I think we all need that.
I think we
And
all need that because, yeah,
we're all on
everyone
the road.
goes through that. Well, that's the thing, really, is I think one thing I wish that we all knew, especially that our allies, that non-queer people knew, is that queer people and non-queer people have a lot more in common than they have that makes us different. Like our coming of age stories really only look different because of the way we're treated externally, not necessarily because of what we're feeling internally. But yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Next question.
Share with us how you came to Boise.
Super not interesting. I was moved to Boise when I was a baby by my parents. Is really it. I don't have any family from Boise or from Idaho. All my family are from the East Coast. And yeah, I was born, my parents moved here, and then I have remained here. A lot of my family, my dad's side, like he's moved away. So it's really just me and my mom in Boise. Yeah.
Okay, so you were pretty much grew up here.
I grew up here. When people ask, are you like born and raised? I was like raised, not born, but I was born in Houston, Texas, and I was brought here. As far as I'm aware, I've been in Boise since before I was like 1 year old. So I'm about as Boise raised as you can be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast, whichever medium you see this on. Now, tell me about living in Boise as LGBTQ and what it means to you to be a part of this community.
Well, I already kind of covered that, talking about growing up in this community. I was really lucky to find like a group of other people my age who are going through their queer journey and were incredibly affirming, which was great. I have to say, I feel again really lucky, really privileged, because I think my experience has been pretty okay, especially by standards for queer people, which sometimes people can be super unkind. But being a part of the community in Boise, I have enjoyed. I like Boise specifically, right? Like the city of Boise is a little different than when you spread out to all of Idaho. But I find that being part of the community here really means that like you need to be close and supportive of each other because we don't have a particularly large community in Boise compared to other major cities. And I have found that people in this community really do come together just to make that safe space. In my experience, again, have been very lucky to find that when I meet other members of the community and like we are getting to know each other and I'm like, my pronouns are they, them, like I'm non-binary, they're always like, good, great to know, like try to do everything they can, be very respectful. So I really appreciate that. I don't know, what does it mean to be part of the community to me? I think there's just all queer people do not live the same lives and we don't have the same experiences, but there is kind of when you meet another person who is queer, you have a little bit of this baby like instant connection with someone, where we do not all have the same experiences. Like any community of people, we are incredibly different from each other and we do not all feel the same. But there is just little like spark of a connection when you find out like someone else is queer, where you're just like, feel like a little bit more comfortable, if you ask me, around them. So I have always lived in Boise, and who knows what the future holds, but I think I will probably be living in Boise for like a bit more of the time. So I would like to see Boise become even queerer. I think that we should take over.
I love that. Take over.
Mm.
What things are you passionate about improving within the community that showcase pride in the community?
One thing I'm very passionate about, just from having lived the experiences, I would love for people, even within our, especially like within our fabulous community, to learn a lot more about trans people. I personally feel that sometimes we act as though like transphobia doesn't exist within the queer community, and it really does. Just like many issues of bigotry still exist in our community, we're not exempt. Like we still have to do hard work to treat each other fairly. And I would really like to continue to meet people and educate them about whatever topics I'm fit to speak and educate them about. I have been lucky that so many of the people I've met before, that especially people who are older than me in general, haven't met a lot of non-binary people in their life. And they have a lot that they need to learn, and really that's okay. The only problem that you can really face is when you meet someone who is ignorant about a topic and doesn't want to learn, right? Like they're not interested, they don't want to grow. They're like, that doesn't suit my, like in my brain, the way I've come to experience the world, so I'm not going to learn about that. But again, not been the case. I've found that a lot of people in this community who don't know a lot about trans people and don't know a lot about non-binary people, as we fall under the trans umbrella, really are super intrigued to learn more and like figure out how they can make spaces more inclusive for trans people. So that is something that I would like to continue to do. I would like to make trans people especially feel more comfortable going into public spaces in Boise, just by like educating and being like, here are things you can do. It's little things generally, right? Like if you are a cis person, when you meet someone, like you could offer them your pronouns when you meet them, because when I meet someone, I have to tell them my pronouns, because otherwise folks will assume my pronouns, and they will generally assume that I use feminine pronouns. And I don't. And people aren't making that assumption to hurt me, but it also is just, if we can all like kind of restructure our minds to not live in such like a binary mindset, just pick up those cues from other people. It'd be great if I met more people, and when I met them, they introduced themselves, they said, hey, this is my name, and like gave their pronouns, because it really opens the door for other people around them to say, oh, so and so, our friends like giving their pronouns, we should all give our pronouns, and then everyone is a little more comfortable, instead of like the only trans person in the room having to be the only one to share their pronouns. It can sometimes make you feel a little bit othered and put you on the spot. So I would like to continue to have us all learn a lot more about trans folks and have maybe a little less of a binary mindset about the world around us, because I think really there's no case to be made for the fact that things are always this or that, because they just truly are not.
And they're not. So why would they
Not.
when it comes to our sex?
Yeah. And they're not for cis people either. Again, like cisgender folks, like your gender expression does not match the person next to you, even though you're both like might be cisgender. Like what is how you like to express yourself is not true. Like every cis woman is not expressing herself the same way. Every cis man is not expressing himself the same way. Like it's silly to have those rules put in place. Like gender norms really just do hurt everybody. I mean everybody. Like no one benefits from them.
No, they don't. They don't.
So
why did you become a stylist?
I became a stylist because I was in high school once upon a time, not that long ago, but kind of long ago. And I was freaking out, just freaking out because I was very much told, like, you got to be on the college path. There's no way to be successful in life unless you jump into college. And I was having a meltdown and was having full on panic attacks, like in my house. I was like crying, hysterical. My mom was very worried. Just like, what are you doing? I was like, I don't know. And I had, at the time when I was in high school, I was super into anime, which was a fun time. And so I was cosplaying, which is I was dressing up as like characters. And so I was doing lots of like makeup and like wigs for that, which was a lot of fun. And I had two of my friends that I was very close with at the time in high school suggest, why don't you be a stylist? Why don't you get a cosmetology license? Because you already like to do like wig styling and makeup. Why don't you just do that if that's what you already like to do? And I was like, why don't I? That's a good question. So yeah, it was suggested to me by two of my friends from high school that I would like that, because the idea to me that I was just like really stuck on is like in my brain, I was like, I'm gonna have to pick a job, I have to pick a career path right now, and that's what I'll get, and that's what the rest of my life has to be. Yeah, I don't know. Listen, I was having a meltdown. It was obviously that is not the case. No one told me at the time. My mom was even trying to help. She's like, Carlin, you can always change your mind later. I was like, no, I can't. I'm stuck now.
You
It
realize
was,
I'm on my third career.
yeah, my mother was very supportive of me, not like, she's like, she's like, you could take a year of work. You don't have to go to college. My mother at the time was going back to college. Like she was back in school when I was in high school, like getting another degree. So I don't know why I believe that. Somewhere in my brain, I really got in my mind that if I had to go to college out of high school and pick something, and that was going to be the rest of my life. I don't know who told me that. I don't know why it was rooted into my brain. It was. Cannot be explained. But yeah, my friends were like, you should do that. And I was like, oh, that doesn't sound like it involves a bunch of paperwork, which was also a concern of mine. When I was in high school, I was like, I'm not doing homework for the rest of my life. Because it sounds unfun. I was like, I don't want to sit and do the same thing day in and day out. That sounds horrible. So I went to beauty school because I had some friends that were like, you should try that. And I was like, sounds good. And I did. And I actually really liked it. So here we are now.
See, that's ironic because you're one of the most meticulous, organized people I know. And I do that from knowing you on a personal level, but I find that ironic.
Isn't it just?
Do you want to show your baby?
He wants to come up so bad. Come here. Oh my God.
We want to see him. What's his name?
This is Timothy, and he can tell that I'm doing something that doesn't require him to have my attention, so he's very upset about it. No, that was not.
They all want our full attention at all times.
This is the love of my life, my little guy.
So now moving on, what makes you the stylist of choice when it comes to the LGBTQ community?
The stylist of choice, it's a big tell. I think what could make me the stylist of choice for some people is that, especially being anyone, again, back to like being part of the community does kind of make you aware that you need to make people feel comfortable in your space. It's back to that little spark of connection. I especially know from going through my journey for like finding out what feels comfortable to me and how I want to present. Very, very like, I don't know, best to say. I have a real special like kind of look into what it feels like to just not feel comfortable with yourself, with the way you look. And so I really like doing hair because I get to help people to feel comfortable with how they look, and how they want to, right? Like our hair is a big part of how we identify. It's a big part of like how we express ourselves. So I have really enjoyed getting to work with a lot of queer people, and especially I've had this past year quite a few trans people who are really early, like new into their physical transition. And it's been really rewarding because they'll come in, right? They're like, okay, well, this is where I want to go with my hair. It's not where they are. And so we just set out a plan. They're like, this is what I would like. In my brain, like, I think if I had this hair, I would be really happy. And we talk about it, I'm like, okay, well, here's how we get there. But I think really, yeah, just being super in touch with how terrible it feels to not be in control of how you look and to not feel good about it. I want everyone that walks out of my studio to be like, wow, I am so happy that I get to look in the mirror today. Yeah, I think that is part of what makes me a stylist of choice. But I really want to say that I think that that makes me a good stylist for anyone. It really actually, like, I love working with people in our community, but of like queer folks, but I like to work with people from the Boise community anywhere. Um, so I would be a good stylist for you, even if you are not a queer person, because once again, there's more that makes us the same, and wanting to feel good about how you look is a very universal human experience. And I, as a stylist, am really good at suggesting new things, never pushing someone to something new, never making them feel like they have to do something or they're going to, like, they'll be lame. They're always doing the same. But a lot of folks just don't really realize, like, hair to me is like so malleable. Like, I can do so many things with it. And folks who walk into my business, sit in my chair through no fault of their own, because hair isn't their job, have no idea like what is on the table for them. If they come in with like pretty dark hair, they have no idea that it's like, you can have purple hair if you want purple hair. They're like, oh, I just would have never thought my hair is so dark. I'm like, I can make it happen. We talk about how to do that works best for your hair. We talk about maintenance. It's like, maybe you don't want that, because you find out having bright, colorful hair, folks, it's a lot of maintenance. You got to be cold showering, no curling irons on those things. It's a lot of work. But yeah, I think what makes me a good stylist for people is I am really good at suggesting new things, just to see if maybe there's something that you didn't even know was an option for you that would make you really happy. Like, hair is just so subject to change. It grows back. We cut it off. It grows back out. We color it. Yeah, and it makes me a good stylist for anyone, whether they are queer or not. But again, very fun to work with people in the queer community here in Boise.
That's awesome.
Yep.
So tell me about the Pride Business League and what that means to you as a member of the board and as the executive administrator.
The Pride Business League.
By the way, Carlin is the executive administrator of the Pride Business League here in Idaho.
I am. It's me. Pride Business League, tell me what it means. Tell you a little about it. Well, for the folks at home, because we certainly know quite a lot about it, because Mita also on the board of the Pride Business League. I have greatly enjoyed it. One thing that is really beneficial is you get to really connect with other small business owners in Boise. You get to have kind of like a think tank there. Oftentimes, if I get there early enough, I tend to walk in late. But if I have something going on with my business where I'm like, oh, I'm not sure how to approach this, one, I've got like a group of people that if I mention it to them, all of their brains are immediately on it. They're like, have you considered this? Like, they all have different areas of expertise. Being a part of the league is really great because everyone has like very different areas of expertise. We have like anywhere from, in our group, like we've got me, I'm a stylist. It is very much like considered like the creative career. I really think that you can make any career creative, but we've got up to like, we've got our resident lawyer, who does a lot of very technical clinical stuff, but it's really great to have a lot of different minds on things. We are working currently and tirelessly. We've set up ourselves as a nonprofit this year, which is really exciting because we are working to have access to a lot of new things so we can set up events, educational events, and just fun events for the community. So that's been really fun. But yeah, the business league is great for anyone who does just want to stop in, because we have our meetings, you know, same time, same place. We're finding a new place. Once we find that place, it'll be the same place. every week, and people are always welcome to come to a meeting, feel it out. The mixers are awesome. I think by the time this podcast comes out, our mixer will have gone by because it's later today.
It'll come out before our mixer tonight, just before.
Well, no one's going to see this just before the mixer, but there are mixers every month, and those are awesome because they're super casual, like low stakes. You're not sitting in a meeting. So if you want to feel out like the vibe of all the people coming, do come to our mixers because they are like a very casual environment. Like there's no stress, no commitments. I think that is the best way to start getting involved in the group, if you ask me, especially if you are not sure, like me, where I was like, I don't understand what a business league is or means because I'm just a baby and I opened my own business this year and I was like, I don't understand what that means, but I'll go see what's happening. And now somehow I ended up as an executive administrator, which is wild, but has been really cool. Oh, there's young people in our group too. Please come. But what does it mean to be
grow your business?
Yes, it has in a couple ways. One has been like, I really appreciate like since we know all on the board, like we know each other. So one, there's like a level of trust where two, like I do some of the hair of the people who are in the business league. So they can tell people and refer them to me with like firsthand knowledge that they're like, you can trust this person, which is really important because if you tell someone you know, someone you like, even an acquaintance, like you should go see this person, you want to know that that person is going to do a good job and that they are really at their core just a decent human being. And so it's nice within the business league because I get to know all the members and I'm like, okay, you are a decent human being. I am not going to feel bad about like sending people your way. So I've gotten referrals out of the business league, which is really awesome. Another way it's actually really helped me is like I, as a brand new business owner, I don't know that much about business. I'm learning really quickly, but I have a bunch of people on the team that are telling me all kinds of stuff I had no idea were options and like opportunities that I could grasp as a business owner. So it helps in that way to where like you have people from all different areas of different industries where they are like, hey, did you know you can apply for this grant? Did you know that this is a free tool to use for business owners? So it's helped me grow my business in that I've seen referrals from it, which I super appreciate. Also, he's whining. That I have just gotten to learn a lot from people who have been running businesses for much longer than I have, very successfully. So that's great. Also, I've made some friends, which I know might not be the reason you join a business league, but it is a fun little side perk.
That's awesome. I love that. And you've also taken leadership and taught a transgender inclusivity class too. That was really awesome and educational.
Yes, it was really great because as I was talking about before, like I currently am one of the only trans members on our board that we're looking to expand and want to include so many members of the community. But a couple members on our business league came and were like, would you tell us more about what it is to be trans and specifically non-binary? And I was like, absolutely, I will. Yeah, people are just incredibly curious. They're like, teach us how to be like the best support and allies to you. And I really appreciate that. So like I said, with what we're cooking up for this coming year, like we want to have more events like that we can really educate like members within the Treasure Valley widespread. So it's been really cool to take up a leadership position. I was, not gonna lie, a little intimidated at first because I was like, I'm just a baby. I can't be in charge of things. Going super smooth, I'd say. Mita can tell me if she thinks that I've lost a bunch of our stuff. I haven't.
Carlin's been phenomenal. So I'm excited to see the things to come with the Business League and excited to see you continue to expand your business with Carlin Creates.
Yes, it's been super great. I'm really just can't stress how excited I am because you and I know, but it's a secret to everyone else.
I know.
Where's Mita? Mita's over there for me. Mita and I know that we're looking at ways that not only can we benefit the members like in our group and make sure that their business grows and prospers, but we really are looking at ways that we can benefit the Boise community as a whole. And I think it's going to be really exciting in 2024, which is coming up real soon.
Super exciting. So thank you for tuning in to Pride Pages podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe and follow. And I will have Carlin's contact details below. Have a fantastic day.